What's up, guys? I'm Jake the Ashen Hollow, and I've got a pretty juicy theory I want to share with you guys, so let's jump right in. So the short of things is that I believe Velka and the two remaining Chaos Witches are the three sisters we are known to have founded the Sable Church of Londor. Now, some of you may know that I believe Velka to be one of the Daughters of Chaos, or a Chaos Witch herself. That is the main reason I believe the founders of the church are the Witch of Izalith's daughters, because I'm certain that Velka has a lot to do with the Sable Church of Londor. And the numbers added up for me, and so on and so forth. Of course, I will show you how I was led to these conclusions. So first, let's look at a screenshot from the intro cinematic from Dark Souls 1. So here we can of course see the Witch of Izalith in the front and her daughters flocked behind her, and I can count 7. In the first game, we only learn of 4, Quelaag, Quelana, the Fair Lady, and the one we are attacked by right before we fight the Bed of Chaos, which leaves 3 unaccounted for. It doesn't seem coincidental to me that they chose 3, specifically 3 sisters founded the church. Now, I know some people speculate that another one of the Chaos Witches is dead because we find the gold hymn set on a corpse upon an altar beside Ceaseless Discharge, which is a valid reason to think that it were another dead Chaos Witch, but upon reading its description it says, worn by the witch Quelana of Izalith, mother of pyromancy and daughter of chaos. So we know these robes to be a set of Quelanas, but we don't know who the corpse belongs to. One thing I would probably speculate would be, since we don't really have a clue as to who the father to the Witch of Izalith's children was, is that they could possibly be undead themselves. Well, aside from the ones that turned into chaos demons, I suppose. So if that were the case, then it's possible this could be Quelana. But then again, from the player perspective of the undead player character, when an undead dies, they are returned to the bonfire, and we can't really tell if the undead returned to the bonfire with a new corpse, with an old corpse, or with some sort of renewed corpse. I mean, we do retrieve our souls from a bloodstain, but that may just be a gameplay consideration so there aren't corpses everywhere, which would cause frame rate conundrums. But maybe perhaps all the corpses are stored in Blighttown, am I right? Anyways, this isn't too important right now, but I do plan to dive more into the subject in another video. I merely wanted to clarify that the robes are Quelanas and present the thought that the Chaos Witches could be undead themselves, maybe. Okay, so now let me tie Velka directly to the Sable Church of Londor. Now I could do this with a single item, but you guys know I'm far more thorough than that. But I'll start with that one item nonetheless, and it's the Miracle Vow of Silence. In Dark Souls 1, its description reads, Secret Rite of Black-Haired Witch Velka. Prevents casting of magic within effect area. Velka, the goddess of sin, is a rogue deity, but she is versed in arts both new and old, and is considered to have a great range of influence even as gods are concerned. So one thing we learned from this is that it was a secret rite of Velka. Being a secret, I doubt many people outside of Velka knew this, and those who did, I would wager, served Velka anyways. One thing I never really caught on to until I tied Velka to the Sable Church was that the line that says she is versed in both arts new and old. I found that line very curious, especially when looking at the miracle, which depicts a very black smoke, which made me think that looks very Abyss-esque. Then that's when the lines both arts both new and old hit me. The Abyss, we know, has been around as long as anything else we've learned about in Dark Souls, so the old arts made me think Abyss arts, and of course that black mass furthered that thought, which to me is already a good enough reason to tie Velka to the Abyss as well. And we also know that the Sable Church serves Koth, and Koth is the Abyss's #1 fan. But we haven't even read the description for Vow of Silence in Dark Souls 3 yet, so let's do that now. It says, Miracle of the Sable Church of Londor. Members of the Sable Church are all trained swordsmen, each sworn only to the weapons as they bear the leaden silence of Londor. Now, it says it's a miracle of the Sable Church of Londor. It was Velka's secret rite. Now it's the church's. It looks to me like someone shared their secret. So if we look at the black gauntlets, they say, Attire of the 3 mentors of the Sable Church of Londor. These black gauntlets are hidden by the dress. It is apparent that the women in black were highly skilled fencers capable of founding the Sable Church between just the 3 of them. So now we know for sure it was 3 women who founded the church themselves. So we meet one sister ourselves if we are following the Lord of Hollows questline. After using Yol to draw out our true strength 5 times, he dies, and when we come back we find a woman by the name of Yuria there. And if we read Yuria's ashes, they say, having 3 founders of the Black Church ensured Yuria's legacy would survive. Her 2 sisters could carry the torch, making certain their lord claims the flame for the sake of all hollows. So now we confirm she is one of the 3 sisters that founded the church. Now to learn the name of the other sister, all we simply have to do is read the Dark Blade Miracle, and it says, Miracle of the Sable Church of Londor, the 3rd daughter, Lillian, or Lilane, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, one of the founders of the Sable Church, is said to recount tales that portray the suffering and conflict of hollows. Now there's something very peculiar about this description in that we learn another sister's name, but it distinctly mentions her as a daughter. Now we do learn of several other daughters throughout the game series, but if you were to go into any Dark Souls game wiki and type daughter into the search bar, most of your findings will be references to the Daughters of Chaos. Now this in and of itself may actually be a coincidence, but I don't think it likely. I think throughout the games, our minds are shaped to immediately think Chaos Witches when we think of the word daughter in reference to Dark Souls. Which is just my speculation, of course, but it made me believe further that the church was founded by Chaos Witches. Okay, so those are only the 2 names we learned from any dialogue or description about the 3 sisters throughout the whole game. And reading the description for Yuria's build mask, it says, Attire of the 3 mentors of the Sable Church of Londor, this build mask belongs to Yuria, the 2nd eldest. These maidens of a primordial serpent were renowned as founders of the Sable Church, which offered salvation to hollows. Alright, so now we know Yuria was the 2nd oldest and Lillian was the 3rd. The oldest sister's name is a complete mystery and we hear nothing of it. Curiously enough, I don't think they would want to just straight up say it was Velka in its typical Dark Souls fashion. They'd want us to find that conclusion on our own. Now, if I can reference Vow of Silence and the Black Gauntlets again, Vow of Silence said members of the church were trained swordsmen, and the Black Gauntlets said the sisters were gifted fencers. So let's take a look at something that is related to whom I think the eldest daughter is, Velka's rapier, which says, a symbolic powerful thrusting sword used by the pardoner serving Velka, goddess of sin. It is no mere symbol, to be sure. The pardoner is an inhuman swordsman and wields this enchanted blade with special sword technique. A rapier is certainly a fencing weapon. Velka even seems to have her own brand of rapier as well, and I wonder if she came up with a good slogan for them too. Stick 'em with the pointy end. Oh no, that's Arya Stark. Anyways, I bet she nailed it. But from this description, we also learned that the pardoner, or Oswald as we know him, was an inhuman swordsman, and that the rapier itself wasn't just a symbol to represent Velka, so we can assume that is because he is talented with the blade. Similar, we know the 3 sisters to be talented at fencing. We also know members of the Church of Londor are talented swordsmen. Now, we can also acquire Yuria's blade, Dark Drift, which we know as a katana, which wouldn't be your first choice of fencing weapon, but let's read the description of the sword's skill ability. And it says, Dark Drift. Aim carefully and pierce with a large forward lunge. The unseen blade penetrates straight through shields, for nothing can defend from Dark Drift. Alright, so that sounds like a very fencing-esque sword art, but we already knew she was a skilled fencer regardless, so we can assume Velka is a fencer as well since she has her own rapier. And I'll only say this once in this video, but coincidences are few and far between in Dark Souls. With that in mind, let's take notice that the 3 sisters' attire is all specifically black. Now, let's read the black cleric robes which are worn by the partners who serve Velka. It says, robe worn by partner serving Velka, the goddess of sin. The partner's attire is uniformly black in color. So there's that. I guess we could now assume, if you're believing my theory so far anyways, that to serve Velka is to serve the Black Church. So a theme to the Sable Church of Londor, I guess, would be wearing all black. They do, after all, have strong ties to the Abyss, so I guess that makes more sense than just assuming they're all super goth. So whenever Yol inevitably dies, we receive the Hollow Ashes, which say, It takes but a brief glance at this thing to easily envision Londor, the foreboding land of hollows. So I assume when it says it only takes a brief glance at this thing to envision Londor, that it is talking about the items we can buy after giving them to the handmaid, rather than just referencing a pile of ash. One thing we get from these ashes from Londor is, wait for it, a ring of sacrifice, which is just yet another thing specifically tied to Velka. Don't believe me? Let's read the description. This mystical ring was created in a sacrificial rite of Velka, the goddess of sin. But this is known. Alternatively, the only other place to purchase a ring of sacrifice is from, well, you guessed it, Uria. It seems that everything is tying itself together once we've gotten to take a look at some of these items and how they relate to one another. It's alright if you don't believe the three sisters have anything to do with the Chaos Witches. They don't have to be. It's simply my speculation. But I think we can all agree that Velka certainly has something to do with the Black Church. Black also, in most religions, signifies sin as well, so there's that. Black is a theme with the Abyss, and I can't imagine why. The Abyss is such a colorful place. So in a last-ditch attempt to get you to join me on team I think they're Daughters of Chaos, let me just read you the description of the Izalith staff, which says, ancient catalyst of the Witch of Izalith and her daughters, used long before the dawn of chaos and of pyromancy. With the birth of the Chaos Flame, the Flame Witches were at once both sorcerers and shamans. Faith adjusts the power of sorceries cast using this catalyst, and the staff also seems to boost the power of dark sorceries. Dark sorceries, pyromancies, and miracles are all related to the Abyss, which makes it peculiar to me that the very catalyst the Witch of Izalith and her daughters used boosts the power of dark sorceries. It still doesn't make it a definite thing, but it's certainly curious. But like I said, it's alright if you don't think they are Chaos Witches. It doesn't alter this story in any way. It was just something I thought could be cool. So I'm not going to delve into the whole principle behind the Sable Church and its intentions this video. There's a whole lot to cover on that subject, and I'd like to dedicate a completely separate video to that. But I will point out that essentially the goal behind the church is to find the Lord of Hollows, have them play the role of the usurper, and usher in the true Age of Dark, and in turn put an end to the cycle that Gwyn created, which is also commonly speculated as the first sin, which is of course Velka's domain. So before I wrap it up, let me give you a few more things to think about in regards to this story arc before the next video I make about Londor. So we know Koth is behind the church. Without hearing Uria mention Koth, I find that it's still pretty easy to put together, simply because Uria sells the Dark Hand, which says, weapon that allows its wielder to evoke an art unique to Londor, the land of the Hollow. It is also said to be an ancient relic of a primordial serpent. We know that the Dark Wraiths are the ones we originally saw with the Dark Hand in Dark Souls 1, and we also know that they served Koth, so this connection isn't too startling. The reason I want to connect the Dark Wraiths to all this is, well, because we see two Dark Wraiths fighting their way towards the Abyss Watchers, which always seemed curious to me, and I never really knew why. That is, until I started putting this whole story together. First, let's read the description for Wolnir's Holy Sword. It says, a holy sword eroded by the abyss. When Wolnir fell to the abyss, he was gripped by a fear of true darkness and pleaded to the gods for the first time. This holy sword, together with 3 armlets stripped from the corpses of clerics, gave him some semblance of comfort. So we know Wolnir fell to the abyss, which we will soon learn he discovered pyromancies there, which may or not point to sisters being Chaos Witches again, but again, not too important right now. I am also seeing another reference to the number 3. I don't know if it's some sort of theme with the Abyss or the Sable Church, but it keeps popping up. Though it could be nothing, I just think it's important for us to note. Alright, so born from the soul of High Lord Wolnir is the pyromancy called Black Serpent. There isn't anything in the description we need, it just mentions he discovered it in the Abyss. What is important is that it's called Black Serpent, which I guess our only assumption would be to think of Koth. So now we've certainly linked Koth, the Black Church, and Wolnir in some way or another. We also know the Abyss Watchers to be Guardians of the Abyss, in case the name wasn't a given. After defeating the Abyss Watchers, in the back of the room, a descending staircase will open leading to Karthus, so it seems likely that the Abyss Watchers were guarding that entrance, presumably to keep the Abyss from further affecting Farron Keep. Karthus is where we find High Lord Wolnir, so it seems likely they are keeping him from escaping. After this realization, it dawned on me that those Dark Souls are fighting towards the Abyss Watchers and not just killing mindlessly. My thought is that they intend to fight the Abyss Watchers and clear the way for High Lord Wolnir. To increase that thought even further, if we are following the Lord of Hollows questline, we can summon a pale shade of Londor to help us fight the Abyss Watchers. AI summons like that aren't placed before a boss fight at random. There is a reason the Dark Wraiths and Londor want the Abyss Watchers out of the way, but what could it be? A final thought I'll leave you to ponder on, as I haven't completely figured out how it all connects, and I'll hopefully be able to cover that in the next video I do on the Sable Church, but by the looks of it, this could turn into a 3-part series. There is seriously so much going on with Londor. But in the profaned capital, there is an enemy called the Monstrosity of Sin. There's that word sin again, by the way. But off of one of these creatures, we get an axe called Eleonora, and it reads, "A strange weapon found among malformed inhabitants of the profaned capital. The profaned flame was triggered by the curse of these women, relative of a certain oracle, but despite their culpability, they went on living without any cares." It seemed curious to me. The church has been trying to usher in the true age of dark and end the cycle of linking the flame. Now here's what happened when Yorm the giant linked the flame. Let's read the pyromancy, profaned flame, and take note again that it is a pyromancy when pondering on my Chaos Witch theory. Anyways, it says, "The profaned capital was consumed by fire after Yorm the giant became a lord of cinder. The fire, born of the sky, is said to have incinerated naught but human flesh. Perhaps in an attempt to stop the cycle, the sisters attempted to manipulate Yorm, thinking that the profaned flame would end it all, which we know actually didn't happen. But upon reading the Londor Braille tome, it says, 'This is a forbidden tome, as it offers salvation to all hollows and conversely curses all living things.' And we know the women from the Eleonora description to have triggered the curse that brought about the profaned flame. Alternatively, we can receive a hollow gem for trading Eleonora to Pickle Pea, and the hollow gem reads, 'A gem of infused titanite, a stone plentiful in Londor, land of hollows.' So we know that it's from Londor, though I guess we could have made an educated guess as to what the hollow gem would be related to. And now we can trade Eleonora for a hollow gem, which was certainly done that way for a reason, as a clue I suspect. But this is something I need to ponder on more, as I've stumbled upon this revelation in the middle of writing this very script. But like I said, I definitely plan to cover the Sable Church in probably more than one more video. And also I lied. This is my final thought. Referencing the Dark Hand one more time, it says that it's a weapon art unique to Londor, but we know from Dark Souls 1 that its art is in fact unique to New Londo, which makes the connection for me that Londor is actually just New Londo. But that might not have sounded as well, so they just went with Londor instead. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed the start of this theory, and don't worry, like I said, I definitely plan to cover the church in way more detail. So just bear with me on any holes in the story, and I'll try to fill those as quickly as possible. I just wanted this video to kind of outline everything and shine a light on my speculation of Velka being one of the sisters, and seemingly more likely possibility of them also being daughters of the Witch of Izalith. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing, and of course let me know what you thought in the comments. I absolutely love chatting Dark Souls with a lot of you lovely people. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Ashen Hollow.